Hi guys, Debbie here. This week I was asked to do a tutorial on some kind of basic concepts on ways to take an SVG, so a cut file that you may have already had before you started sublimation. I know a lot of people start with vinyl and then they upgrade to sublimation. And so you've got like a huge library of SVG files. But I was asked to do a video on things you could do with your existing SVG designs to kind of jazz them up and turn them into sublimation designs. And I actually get that question a lot, just about SVGs in general. You can totally 100% use SVG files for sublimation. There's nothing special you have to do to them. You can use them as is and just use, the black or white or however you get the design. Or you can go and just recolor it. Now, the ones on the screen here are one SVGs from my website, from some of my designs. And this is exactly how they were when I pulled them off of my backup hard drive where I put all my files. And so this is how they are when you download them. So a lot of them already have some colors and they'd be cute to just print and press just like these. But if you want to make them a little bit fancier, like these ones, that is the point of the video today. I'm going to do this in 3 parts. That's my plan anyway. We'll see how I do on time today, but this video, the first one's going to be in Silhouette Studio because I know a lot of people use Silhouette Studio to print their sublimation prints, and you could download it for free. And so I'm starting here, but I'm planning on doing Illustrator and Photoshop as well because those are the other programs that I use. I don't actually do my designing in Silhouette. It just kind of tends to be a little bit slow and glitchy for me. But I actually do print in Silhouette just because it's easier for me to drop a bunch of designs and size them exactly how I want them on the paper. The graphics programs for some reason don't work as easily to me. But I also started with vinyl, so I guess just printing with Silhouette is an easier concept. Plus, you can use print and cut, so that's a big deal. I've actually used Adobe products for longer, but I never printed from those. So the print menus on a lot of the design software, there's a lot more questions and variations, and I could never really get a good print from them anyway. So Silhouette. Here are the 3 files that I grabbed that I am going to show you as examples. So I already have them separated out. And I'm just going to go through and show you what I did to get these. A lot of them it's just adding, pattern fills or whatever. So this one, obviously we just changed the color up here and added some different fills into the design. But sometimes they're grouped or otherwise layered, kind of different than how you need them, or they're a compound path and so you can't fill exactly what you want. So that's why I wanted to sit down and show you how this would work in Silhouette here. So first thing we're going to do is you're going to ungroup the design. They pretty much always import as groups together. I'm going to go ahead and leave this gray because the one that I did last night I just left gray. But up here we're going to change it to red, and I'm just going to use the eyedropper to match that red. Oops, I'm on the line. Eyedropper, match the red. If you don't have a red to match, obviously, there's some default colors here, but in my opinion, the red is not an ideal red. It's like a big, bright, ugly red. If you get on to advanced options, you could change all the colors, or you could type in an exact hex code if you've got one in mind. But here's where you would adjust it to get the color you want, and that's how I picked that red when I was putting together my little concept last night. So we're going to change that to red. That's all we're going to do on that. I'm going to leave these gray, but down here the camera needs a little bit of work. So I'm going to put it over here so you could see for a second. There isn't any white behind it, and we need to add some white. If you look at this one, I'm going to ungroup it here. I added white behind it so it would fill in all the spots that I was going to leave alone. just in case you wanted to drop it over like a different background or something. For sublimation, you wouldn't have to worry about that. That white's not going to print as long as it's a true white. See all F's over here? You're fine if it's all F's. It won't print. But just for the sake of teaching, I want to show you how to change this so you could change that color to something else if you wanted to. So let me hit undo here. Put this back where it was so we don't have to think through the camera placement here. So I want to leave that there, and then I'm not messing with the original design. So if you either right click and you can hit duplicate, or if you hold down Alt or Option on a Mac on your keyboard, see how my cursor turns into a plus sign? I live by this little Alt shortcut here. The plus sign will just duplicate it for you. And so like that little holding down Alt or holding down the space bar, I would die if I didn't have those. It just makes designing so much easier for me, little tiny hacks like that. So anyway, we're gonna duplicate it, move it over here. And the first thing I do is I like to come over here and get rid of the fill and then add a line. So you're just working with the lines, because as soon as, what we're going to end up having to do is release the compound path. And if you have a fill in there and you release the compound path, the whole thing's going to turn that solid fill color, and then you can't find what you're looking for. So if you make it transparent and you just add a line, it makes it a lot easier to find what you're looking for. So I'm going to right click on it, and we're going to ungroup. And then if you look, there's still parts that are attached that we might want to unattach. So we're going to take those and see if there's an ungroup option. There's not. So now we're getting down to the actual path. So we're going to go to Release Compound Path and then pull this out. This is what I want to turn white and put behind it. Excuse me. Now we're also going to use the heart alone over here because we want to fill that with something. So we need a heart too. We can save this black. That part right here stays black, so that's fine. So we don't need to pull that out. We're already going to have that path over here, but we need just the heart alone. So I'm going to do the same thing, release compound path, move that over there. So we have this heart. So we're going to get rid of the line, come back and fill it with white. And then this, we're going to fill with something else here in a minute. So I'm going to take this little white box and I'm going to right click. We're going to send to back. See, we connected it there. And then I'm going to grab the camera with it and come over here to the align panel. And the goal here, this isn't hard, we could just center it when we're done, but I'm trying to show you how to not mess with the original design. So there's just a couple little tricks that I've just picked up that I'm going to pass along here. So if you go over to the align tool, I want to move this white behind it. Here, I'm going to do something, because it's really hard to see what we're doing because I've got it on white. I know I could just change the reveal on that, but I don't want to go through all those settings. So anyway, we're moving it over here so you can see. We're going to grab the white and we're going to grab the camera. And if you come over here, see how the camera is farther left? There's this align to the left option here, and it's going to bring that white all the way over so the main camera doesn't move. And then we would do the same thing, but since the black where we want it to stay the same is the lowest point here, we're going to go to the line to the bottom part. So now that white is perfectly lined up behind the camera, but we didn't move the camera, if that makes sense. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we need this to be plaid. And I can already see that I did not cut this path out here. And so I need to show you that real quick. So we need this heart. I'm going to grab this again and show you how to make, oh, nope, I need that. I'm retracing my steps here just a little bit. Okay, so we need to release this compound path again and release this compound path again. So we can get this line and this line out. See that? That's where we want to put the plaid. So we're trying to get just those two shapes together and then turn it back into a compound path. So let me show you here. If we just filled it with red, then it would do that. And we want to not fill the whole thing with red. So if, not red, we're going to do plaid. So if you right click, you select them both, and you right click and hit make compound path, it's going to cut that out in the middle for you. And that's what you want. So we need this piece and we need this piece. So I just skipped a step there. So sorry, I had to do that again. Okay, so we need to add a pattern to that part of the camera. So I actually have a whole set of buffalo plaid patterns that I made in a bunch of different colors. So we're going to go grab one of those. I have them all available. I actually went through and uploaded a whole bunch of elements this week so that you guys can get to these if you want them. So I have these on the website, but there's a couple ways you could do this, but really the easiest way, if you're not super picky about the exact placement of things and whatever, is just to take it and drag it right into the shape like that. Now I have a black outline on that still, so I'm going to come back over here to the line style and turn that into a transparent line, and then we just come over here and drop it in place. So the last step of this one is this heart here. And that is one of my bokeh textures here. This one. Oops, what? And it looks like I did the gray one. So we're going to go back. This one. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to drag it right into that heart. And then we're going to move it right here. Like that. And if you see I added this little outline there, I just thought it needed to be broken apart just a little bit. So we're going to come over to the line, we're going to add white, and then come over to the style, and we're just going to make it a little bit bigger until it looks the way we want it. And there, we just fancied up this SVG. Now I'm going to show you these other ones kind of relatively quick here, similar concepts, but it's just going to cover a couple of other things. So this one, I have the same concept going here, but see this glitter? These little snowflakes are all separated, but I don't want them all separated. I just want to fill them all at once. So I'm going to select them all and make a compound path. That basically means it's one big path. It's one shape, even though it looks like a lot. We're turning it into one shape. And you could do the same thing that we did. I'm going to grab some of my glitter textures. We're going to grab a silver. You can grab a ping file or a JPEG. Silhouette Studio is kind of weird for me, and it kind of struggles to function sometimes, which is weird because I can have Illustrator and Photoshop open at the same time and working in all kinds of programs, and it's fine, but Silhouette just kind of lags. And so the smaller file sizes you're using and all these textures and stuff, the better, just so it's not stressing it out as much. And a JPEG file is typically smaller than a PNG file, and for a background there's not going to be any transparency, so we don't need the PNG. I originally offered it because everybody asks for PNG files because Sublimation needs transparent backgrounds, but my textures I've since just switched all over to the JPEG because there's no reason to have the bigger files. So I'm just going to grab the JPEG file, and we're going to drop it into the snowflakes. But if you look, see how this snowflake looks different than this one? So it's zoomed in more on this one. So if you come back over to your fill panel and you click on the one with the dots, that's where your pattern is, and go down to advanced options, you're going to have some options here to adjust it. So I'm going to make it, it's basically zoomed out. If you look at it closer, they're smaller. And see that line? Ignore that line. It's not actually going to print. It's just Silhouette doing its thing again. See, now I zoomed in a little bit more and it's gone. It just kind of shows that weird line sometimes. So we're going to take the scale and we're going to make it a little bit smaller there so that it's just, oops, see, and there's a little lag. So I stopped it where I thought I wanted it and it moved. But anyway, we're going to leave that alone for now, just so you're not having to watch me tinker with the software. But you adjust the scale if you want to make the glitter look smaller or bigger. Now, my glitter isn't a seamless pattern. They're actual photographs of glitter. So I didn't set them up to be seamless, but there's enough going on that you don't see the seams. Like I zoomed in and looked at it, and it's when it's that small, like you don't have to worry about adjusting the scale down below 100%. Nobody's going to see the seam between the pieces of glitter on those. Okay, so the next thing I did is, see this little faint thing behind here? This is a little paint swatch. It's actually an SVG. If I come back over here to the fill, you could see this is how you could tell if they're SVG files. They're editable. If this was an image, I wouldn't be able to change the color like this. So these little like paint swash, whatever, paint blotch SVGs, which I have a set of these too on the website. They're nice because you can just go and choose whatever color you want. But I do have a little disclaimer on those. I don't recommend these for actual cut files because they're, I mean, some of them would be okay, but they're mostly meant for things like this so that you guys can have some tools to make some changes and stuff to files as you want. So I'm going to come back into my little master folder of all my fun stuff. I think paint wash. What do I call those? Oh, paint blotches. Okay, so I have them all in one file. I'm just going to drag and drop them in. And I used this one. So we're going to ungroup. Pull this one out and get rid of the rest of them. And now you can switch the color around, whatever you want, and go find it. I'm just going to eyedropper it for the sake of time. Right click, send to back. And we're just going to make it bigger. See the lag that Silhouette does? I don't know why. It drives me bonkers. That's why I don't use it that much. But I think that's just a thing with mine. I don't think everybody has those issues like I do, because people use it all the time and swear by it. But for some reason, it's just kind of weird for me. Anyway, so we drop that background behind it. We're going to do the same thing like we did with all these other textures. We're going to drop in sweater. Except I need to move this a little bit more, and I want to make sure that I can get to it without dropping in another word, so I'm close enough for that. White, there we go. Now, this is why I'm doing this one. I know I'm repeating some things, but I wanted to show you some changes here. So see this, how it's at an angle, and this one's upright. So if you come over here to the fill pattern, that's another tool, angle. So you can rotate it a little bit. And I'm kind of weird with these sweaters. I like them to look like they're straight with the shape. So I'm following the line. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Following the line there. And just for the sake of the video, we're going to change the outline again. Not for the video, for this design. I thought it needed a little bit of a break between that background blue. Oh, dang it. Stupid Silhouette. I wasn't selecting it. Do you like how I blame the software there? So we're going to add a little white line just to give it a little bit of a break. And actually, so see the color difference here? I actually lightened up this sweater just a little bit because it looked dark here. And so I wanted to show you that too. Over here, there's image effects panel, which I'm going to be completely honest, I never use this because I don't design in Silhouette that often. I mean, I used Silhouette a lot more when I was just doing SVG designs. And before I was selling, you know, just using the vinyl for myself. Once I started selling, I started doing everything in Adobe programs because I've been using those and I knew those, and it lets me save in all the formats that I needed. So I never used a lot of these. But if you come over here to the image effects panel, you've got these different things that you can use. But if you go over here to brightness, you can actually adjust the brightness of that snowflake. So I just played with it until I thought it looked like just a little bit brighter for the design, and I think that looks fine. It looks like I also made the scale a little bit smaller too, so it's not quite so busy. Damn, I deselected it again. Scale. So it's not quite so busy, but it just gives you, you know, the look there. Okay, so next thing we did, okay, that's not attached to it. So I was just making sure I didn't have It's Cold in there too. So back here, we're gonna eyedropper. And then I'm gonna change this color. We're just gonna match it. But again, you just use your color panel and pick what you want. It looks like I also added little white outlines to this, but I'm going to skip that for now because I already showed you how to do this. But I wanted to show you one more thing in the effects panel, which you can't see very well on this, but it adds just a little bit. There's a little bit of a white drop shadow that I put on these. And sometimes that really helps to make the design not blend into the background as much. And again, this is something I didn't know existed in Silhouette until I was in here playing with things for this video. But they added a drop shadow tool. So if you click on this, by default, it's going to be on this first one. It says no shadow. So you need to click over here and choose one of these where there's an actual shadow showing up. And then if you come down here, you can go to shadow color, and we're just going to bring it down here and pick a white. And then I know it's like impossible to see because my screen is so big. I need to zoom in to see it. But what I had figured out when I was playing with this is messing around with these little inches thing. It's difficult. If you click on this pan shadow, this little box shows up and you could start to see it. I know that I'm not sure how well the screen recorder like shows the colors here, but I'm just going to tuck it up next to it so it helps it pop just a little bit more. And really you could do any color on that, and they can add some cute little looks to things. The green was actually kind of cute. But anyway, there's a little drop shadow in case you wanted to do that. So I have one more design. I've already taken over 20 minutes to do this, so I'm going to just fast forward through this one. I think basically I already showed you how to fill and add outlines and drop shadows. To do the wings down here, the same concept as what we did with the camera. I copied them and I released compound path, and then instead of like grabbing the outside path and messing with all that, to pull out just that path carefully, because there actually isn't really, there's a lot. For things like this where I just want to fill the whole background in, I release the compound path and then I right click and I hit weld, and it's going to weld all those together, and then I'll right click again and hit make compound path again, so it turns it into one big path. And then I use, this is actually one of my galaxy textures. It's this mint and gray. I just dropped that in, and I messed with the scale. Obviously it's not an exact match. I messed around with that, but that's good enough for now. Sending it to the back, and we're going to drop it behind. Oh, just to show you another little life hack here. If you're okay with moving it around, you're not worried about moving the original design like I was trying to show you. If you come over here to the align panel, so this one centers to the page, but this centers, what do they call it? Oh, it just says center. But this will just center what you've selected. So it'll perfectly line them up. Now, if I was trying to not move the original wings so they stayed where I wanted them, then I would use this little like line up to the edge and line up to the top thing so that I don't move the original. But this one, I don't care if I move it. I'm just going to place it where I want it. In fact, I made it a little bit bigger for the new design and made the text smaller, if you could see the differences here. So I don't mind just choosing the center tool, and that's actually easier. So I wanted to show you that. And now I'm going to come back over here. We're going to turn that black. But behind this one, I have this cute little paint swashy thing, which is another thing that I made. I actually use these a lot for things. Watercolor background. But what's kind of cool about these, which one did I use? It looks like blue and green. So, oop, don't drop it in there. I make them brighter than I would typically use them, just for the option to have it vivid if you want it, but you can always bring the transparency down to get it the look that you want. And another thing that's kind of fun with these, depending on the design that you're doing, is you can overlap them. Nope, don't drop it right in there. And create like a new color look by combining the two and zooming out here, kind of moving them around. Let's send to back, and it'll give you a whole new little watercolor swashy thing to create all kinds of fun looks. So I'm going to send that to back too, because I actually have the blue in front. But just kind of a cool little thing that comes in handy a lot, these little watercolor swashy things, just to add something different. Now I'm going to get rid of that so you can see what we are copying here. And yeah, I just did the same thing with these that I did for the other ones. I ungrouped, made sure they were compound paths. I'm going to show you this real quick because I remember doing this one. It actually wasn't all one compound path, just in case you ever wanted to change some of the colors. But I wanted the glitter to be nice and fine, so instead of doing them all one path, for this one I just did each word a path, which is totally an option. Now that's already going to be a path because there's no stray pieces, but the little dots, I don't know why, I must have missed this when I was doing it, but they're not actual compound paths. But you could drop in, I'm just gonna grab one of these just to drop in and show you. You could drop it in on each letter or each word. You know, each word is its own path, which these little watercolor swashes actually make kind of cute fills. You know, you get some little droopy things on the end. But I used one of my glitter textures for that, and then I did an outline. I also, if you don't want to do an outline, there's another way you can do a drop shadow that I wanted to show too. I'll do it real quick and then we're going to wrap this up. If you just copy a word and you turn it white, and then you send backward until you get it where you want it. I'm just going to go ahead and just put this one, bring to front. I want the white behind the black. If you just copy something and turn it white, you could tuck it behind yourself to grab a little bit of a drop shadow. So that's just another look you could do that I wanted to make sure I showed you. That'll add some depth to things. And you can come over here to the transparency and even fade it out just a little bit, and it just adds this kind of pretty little glow that's off to an angle. So last random design thing I wanted to show you. So anyway, hopefully this shows you a few random little tricks and gives you some ideas on things you could do just to use some of the existing SVG files you already have. But just kind of fancy them up since you can. With sublimation, you don't have to worry about you know, cut lines and all, like the color, the vinyl issues. That is why all these people are doing sublimation now anyway. So being able to kind of fancy up some SVGs is a cool thing to learn. But if I missed anything or you have any other questions, just let me know and I will do my best to cover them for you. Anyway, thank you guys.